Hey, all y'all, this is Dr. Brett. Appreciate you hopping on this video here. For those of you that kind of saw me do a couple of the videos that I posted about just why I'm fired up about all this, like it's super, super important that people have this information. So I've been in clinical practice now over 20 years, taught and trained physician for the last, 25. And I think really nothing that gets me fired up more than anything is just to watch people have to struggle way longer than they should have to, only because they haven't been shown answers or solutions. There's so many people that are working so hard and getting so little because they just don't know what actually exists out there. And it's very, very frustrating because this isn't common things that are taught in our schools. It's not common things that are shared out there. And so what got me fired up this was just the last couple of days. I've watched this across the news. And here it is. It's February 17th, and I've seen this last couple of days where they're talking about this shortage of medications for ADD and ADHD, and the problem that they're having in getting this medication to individuals that are struggling. And many people that I've worked with over the years, whether on medication or off medications, are just they're looking to be able to focus, to be able to concentrate, and many of them don't know even how the medications work, and let alone the side effects. So if you're in that space where you've been on medication or you've thought about medication, or you felt good or didn't feel good on it, and you're looking for options, I want you to, by the end of this, understand a little bit more about brain health, what you can look for. Understand that brain health and mental health are one and the same, and whole body health affects brain health, and brain health affects whole body health. So here's a couple of things that I want you to keep in mind. All right, because we need to come up with different options. So this was published just last week, talking about this shortage that's happened. It's just month after month they're having this happen, and I want you to know that the statistics are that we're increasing in this problem all the time when it comes to the numbers of people struggling with attention, focus, concentration, which really being successful in learning and successful in society, successful in relationships, because of how they're experiencing or how they're focusing and how their brain is literally functioning. So it can, people that are diagnosed with ADD, ADHD, or any of those things affect the brain, they can have a range of symptoms, from fatigue to loss of appetite to depression, right, to lack of focus, lack of concentration, so many different things. And yet, most of the time, the medications are given are very, very similar. So I want to kind of just show you a couple of things. Here's some of the medications that are given to people with ADD, ADHD, and so attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Those are those abbreviations. But I want you to get bigger when it comes to brain health, right? So when people are struggling in any way, shape, or form, they have a whole array of symptoms, and then based on those symptoms, they're given a diagnosis, and based on that diagnosis, then they're given a medication. So here's just a handful of some of the medications that are given, and some are stimulants and some are non-stimulants, right? And each one has effects and side effects. So please, if you're on any medications, like obviously, talk to your physician about the decisions you're making with your health, and whoever that is your trusted health advisor. And make sure you also read the side effects of what you're doing, whether that's nutraceuticals or whether that's or medication. Understand what those are, so you understand like some of the things you may be feeling may be a result of what you're doing. Because basically where you are right now is as a result of what you're doing. So it's critical that you start understanding what it is that you can do to change that if you want to make a difference. All right. So what I find is interesting here, you have these stimulants, and people always, well, why do I give somebody that can't focus something that's stimulatory in nature? So a brain that's tired, a brain that's like decreased in stimulus, will be will have a body that's busy. So when a lot of kids, they'll end up moving around a lot or be distracted super easy because they just can't focus because their brain is going so slow. Just the activity alone gets their bodies up and gets their brain moving enough where they can like focus for a minute, or they disrupt the class, which creates a little bit of a adrenal or stress response, and then they can focus for a minute. Right. And there's other forms where they're using non-stimulant drugs that have a little different effect, but for some people, it can focus for a period of time. Now, each one of those have different side effects. Okay. Here's some of the side effects. Just keep in mind, like this is just a few of them: sleep problems, eating issues. I see this a lot. People that are on some of these stimulant meds, they lose an appetite, and then they don't want to eat, and they don't want to eat, and then they lose weight, or then they can't focus, and that's just kind of a vicious cycle. Mood changes, And sometimes with his mood changes, they'll add on other medications to try to stabilize the moods. Nausea, rebound headaches, increase in blood pressure or pulse. Those are just a few. Like just whatever med, if you're on one, like look at the side effects so you know which ones are from the meds and which ones from other things. All right, and we'll talk about those other things. People will always look for a way to treat their symptoms, even if it's not a medication. So you can say this a lot right now when you look at just energy drink consumption in the United States and really globally. It's constantly going up in the amount of energy drinks that are being consumed now, and that's just in energy drinks, let alone other things like coffee, right, or sodas, or I mean, we used to joke at the time that the treatment for ADD was a Snickers and a Mountain Dew, right? The caffeine or the sugar with the other to actually get that where they could focus for a minute. But what that means is that perhaps some of the symptoms people have in their brain are a result of what they're eating, and they're going to either medicate or self-medicate, whether that's through prescription or on their own, good or bad. So it's really important to understand what you can do about that. So here's a couple books that I think are good just to give you perspective, right? Because you only know what to look for based upon the knowledge that you have, right? There's always going to be people that come first, the ones that are the outliers that have to break the mold in order to get the world to see things differently. That's been my whole life, which is like being on the outside as a chiropractor and somebody that focuses a ton on nutrition and studying cranial work. Like I'm not the first person somebody comes to for a concussion, yet I am the first person for people to understand what I do. Right. And I think that's important. If you understood what other options were available to you, you would know that might be a possibility. Couple of good books. Okay. The Mental Illness by Dr. Daniel Amen and this Concussion Rescue, both really good books because they focus on understanding brain health and the importance of it. So here's just a few of the topics then that I thought were fascinating. Talking about addressing hormones with a brain injury, talking about correcting physical structural integrity, looking at things like neural feedback, natural treatment for like long-term traumatic brain injury. So understand that many people that struggle with focus and concentration have had physical injuries to their brain and or chemical injuries to their brain. It's both need the brain to become healthy. But if you had a broken arm, you treat it as a broken arm. If you had a torn muscle, you treat the torn muscle. Well, if we have a brain that's injured, we need to treat the brain in the way that it needs to be treated so that it can heal with the right rest, the right exercise, and the right nutrients. Has to have it if it's going to improve, if it's going to rehab appropriately. Super, super important. All right. So here's some image I think is really fun. So if you type in Dr. Daniel Amen, you look up SPEC images, he talks about how this over the last 20 plus years, he's done thousands of what's called SPEC images where you can look at the visual effects of the physical aspects of the brain based on blood flow. And so this is just a snapshot of one of his slides that talk about, and you can see the difference of what a healthy brain looks like in the top left to what different what the brain looks like, whether they're using like methamphetamines, marijuana, smoking, opioids, cocaine, alcohol. Bottom line, everything you do, physically, emotionally, nutraceutically, good or bad, has an effect on brain. We just don't see the effects of it immediately. A lot of times it's over time. The effects of everything you do is cumulative, positive or negative. So what's beautiful about these SPEC images is that people can literally see how this is damaging brain. If you do that long term, it becomes a permanent change. We don't want that. The body is always trying to heal and repair. We got to do the right things in order to do that. Here's a couple of really fun studies that I thought were interesting. Okay, this was a study, and this is off a site called PubMed.gov, where you can literally like go in and look at the current research and what's going on. This was done in 2020. So this is on autism specifically. So autism is a more complex and I would say progressive neurological problem. And you see more severe symptoms, whether that's speech or behavior or socialization or integration in society or just what's called sensory integration. It's a much more complex and usually much more severe, right? but they have a brain just like we all have a brain, and that brain needs very specific things to heal. So I thought this was a fascinating study. So I want you to think, we're going to think differently. We're not going to think in terms of symptoms as much. We're going to talk in terms of systems, right? The funny thing or interesting thing about bills, if you have bills, like all of us do, the company that you have to pay the bill to does not care how you made the money, right? It takes money to pay a bill. So in your body, you have systems that need to have what they need in order to do what they need to do so you to feel what like you want to feel. All right. So autism, complex brain disorder, but I want you to just hear a couple of things. So it said this disorder has been linked to increased levels of oxidative stress and lower antioxidant capacity. Here's what that means. Oxidative stress in us is increased aging, increased inflammation. In metal, that's called rust. If you leave in Arizona, you leave stuff out in the sun where I live, it cracks and becomes brittle. So the lower antioxidant capacity, antioxidants are the things your body uses in order to repair that. So we all have oxidation because we breathe, right? Just like we all have bills. It becomes oxidative stress when you cannot handle the amount of oxidation going on in your body. It becomes stressful, so you have more breakdown. You will always have dysfunction before you have disease, almost always. All right. So in us, we'll have oxidation. If it gets out of control, it becomes oxidative stress, which that oxidative stress leads to dysfunction. So where we have symptoms, we don't feel as good, they can lead to eventually to disease. And there's literally about 200 different human diseases that are directly linked to oxidative stress. So again, going back to the analogy when it comes to money and bills, we all have bills, right? It doesn't become overly stressful until you don't have enough money to pay the bill. And when that happens, then you have to decide which bill you pay, and you have to make different buying decisions. So you're not always buying on what's best. You're buying what you have to get by with. Your body's no different. It will always fix what it has to, unless it has enough extra to fix what you want it to. All right. So that's first thing. So, and they said oxidative stress. They studied a ton. They said several studies have suggested alterations in the activities of antioxidant enzymes, such as, and these are big words, but superoxide dismutase, glutathione peroxidase, and catalase. So these are the big enzymes that your body produces. Like these are things that the cell produces when the switches are turned on correctly to clean up the cell. The health of a cell is really equal to the health of the whole organism. So what this is they're saying, hey, these antioxidant enzymes, like they're alterations in the body's ability to make them, therefore leading to more levels of oxidative stress. All right. And then they also go on and say, additionally, altered glutathione levels and homocysteine methionine metabolism, increased inflammation, excitotoxicity, environment, and genetic risk factors may intensify vulnerability. So this is what I see all the time. So some people just have a phenomenal capacity to heal. So there are individuals that are exposed to different environmental pollutants, right, that don't handle that process as well, just like some people don't handle stress the same way. So this links back to how well your body produces these antioxidant enzymes, the superoxide dismutase, the catalase, glutathione, and how well it handles homocysteine levels, which requires B12, folic acid, trimethylglycine. It provides certain nutrients. So if you don't have those, you're going to struggle. If you have increased levels of inflammation, you have more cell toxicity, right? And certain environmental like exposures, it's going to be worse for you. All right. So just looking overall, looking at all these studies, that increased oxidative stress will contribute to the development of this disease, both in terms of pathogenesis and clinical symptoms. All that means is what they can literally see in the cell, this is what's going on, and the symptoms that somebody has. So obviously we're talking about autism in the furthest range, but also think about just individually, like how you're feeling, how you're functioning today, and what that means for you long term. So here's what the key is, though, of what can I do about it, right? Oxidant supplementation, or ways to improve the altered metabolic levels in this what's called methylation and the sulfuration pathway. So methylation is that homocysteine, that's the B12. You might have heard of the methylation, right? So you got to be able to what's called methylate. You have to be able to what's called sulfurate to get rid of toxins. Has been associated with decreased autistic behaviors and severity. So just nuts and bolts. They found that when they gave the body things that it needed to reduce that oxidative stress, to reduce the inflammation, that there was better behavior in these autistic individuals, right? But this is 2020, so like we just found out about this, right? You're not going to like this. Again, 2006, a very similar study, right, saying the same thing. Oxidative stress, it's been studied at the membrane level. Remember, this is 2020 was the other one. This is 2006. So literally, years ago, they were talking about this. So if you have someone you love that's been struggling with things that are with focus, with concentration, or in severe cases, autism, has anybody talked to you yet about this? The fact is that maybe having more antioxidants, increasing your body's ability to handle that oxidative stress, that could have been a big thing. So if we go here a little bit, that I thought there's a positive correlation between the reduced levels of these proteins and the loss of previously acquired lingual skills in children with autism. So I've heard that time and time again. Hey, they were doing these normal behavior, and all of a sudden something happened, right? Whether it was a trauma or something, and all of a sudden those language skills got worse. They linked them back to the fact here that there were some things going on with oxidative stress to where that was related to why they had those symptomatic changes. So here's the good news. Several studies suggested alterations in the activities of antioxidant enzymes, just like we said before, superoxide dismutase, SOD, glutathione, and catalase, right? And homocysteine, inflammation, excitotoxicity, mitochondrial immune support. So these are the systems that if you know how to address, you can improve things. And when you can improve how a cell functions, you can improve how the organism functions. And what that means is you can have more success. So going back to, so we got to figure out a way to handle oxidative stress. We got to figure out a way to reduce inflammation, and we got to figure out a way to make sure our immune system's not going haywire and our mitochondrial work. All right, super simple, right? We hope. All right, so here's where I'm going to come back to this. All right, I love how grandma always knew best, right? Here's a couple quotes that we're gonna come back to again. The doctor of the future will give no medicine, but will instruct his patients in the care of the human frame, in diet, and the cause and prevention of disease. That was Thomas Edison. All right. Hippocrates. Perhaps we should reflect on the word of Hippocrates when advised. The natural healing force within each of us is the greatest force in getting well. Our food should be our medicine, and our medicine should be our food. So my question to each of us: are we studying the things that help us understand the systems of our body and the influence we have over it, good and bad? And are we doing those things that will lead us towards health? Are we using our medicine as our food or not? All right, so here's where it's going to get fun. So I'm going to talk about two different systems that I think are important. So Dr. Daniel Amen, he uses something called the Bright Minds Principles. And he talks about blood flow. He talks about aging, inflammation, genetics, head trauma, toxins. He talks about mental health, immunity, infections, neurohormonal deficiencies, diabetes, and sleep issues. So going back to what we talked about before, the oxidative stress, right? Improves mitochondrial support, improve immune function, all right? All it relates back to these same things. So he's saying, like, in order to have an optimal brain, we got to have better blood flow, right? We got to keep the brain active. That's the aging. We got to decrease inflammation. We got to understand what genes we have, but also understand what things damage genes. Obviously, avoid head trauma. And when you get a head injury, is do something about it. Identify toxins in your environment and eliminate as much as we can. Focus on good behaviors for mental health. Control immunity and infections. Make sure your neurohormone system is functioning optimally with what it needs. Controlling diabetes, right, which leads to diabetes, and making sure you're getting adequate sleep. All right. And then this is the philosophy I grew up under. We call it the 6 steps to wellness, which is understanding how the physical form works and make sure it moves correctly, dealing with electromagnetic pollution, making sure we're addressing nutritional deficiencies, addressing allergies and sensitivities, emotional stress, and toxicities. We call this the 6 steps to wellness. Here's the nuts and the bolts. I talked about bills. We all have bills, right? And hopefully we make way more money than the amount of bills we have. So no matter how much money you make, if you spend more than you make, you're still going to be in stress. So this is, we call it reset the adrenals, but it's called the general adaptive syndrome. So when I think of stress, I think of how much we have to adapt. The more adapting you're having to do day to day, whether that's just temperature, whether that's dealing with emotional upset, or even not eating or not eating enough or eating the wrong type of foods, your body has to adapt. You'll go through and you'll deplete your reserves. And everybody comes with different levels of reserves. So if it's the full tank, I call that the emotional state is driven. If you're getting less, it's dragging, losing it, hitting the wall, and burnt out. Your body in that burnt out phase is not going to be in a good healing phase. So I want you to think about where you are today and then start applying these principles that I'm going to share with you now to move the needle back the other direction. I always say this, but please remember this. Whoever is in charge of you is the person responsible for you. And I tell this to teenagers especially, whoever wipes your hiney is in charge of you. So you are in charge of you to understand the rules and then to pass those rules on to others so they understand what the rules are to be healthy. So here we go. So this is, again, a fairly, not a study back in 2008, basically saying the same thing, looking at like ADD, ADHD specifically, and that literally they saw changes in people, like in the blue, based on emerging scientific evidence back in 2008. This form of nutritional supplement treatment may be appropriate for controlling major depression, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, and anxiety disorders, eating disorders, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, addiction, and autism. And the nutrition they were talking about, you look here, vitamins and minerals, omega-3 fatty acids, they're deficient in many, many people. And if they're addressed, they're symptomatic, they could be improvement. All right. So I wrote down concussion and brain health because that ties into the two books I was telling you about. We're not going to worry about the structural stuff, right? I'm going to focus on nutrition stuff, this stuff that you can literally change. I want to keep it super, super simple. So the goal is to reduce your stressors wherever you can and improve your body's ability to function anywhere else you can. So think of it, make more money, have less bills. So there are things that will deplete your reserves and there are things that you can do that would restore the reserves. So things that can deplete your reserves are too much stress, not enough sleep, cruddy diet, bad relationships. All of that will drastically do that. As a chiropractor, there's physical things that I want to do to make sure I improve the communication between the brain and the body. That's all that structural stuff you'll see there on your left. But when it comes to having optimal brain health, here's some key things in order to do. And going back to what we said before, reducing oxidative stress, improving mitochondrial dysfunction, having adequate vitamins and minerals in your diet and or in supplementation, controlling the gut and controlling inflammation and having a healthy gut will have a giant impact on your brain focus. So here's some awesome protocols. That essential fatty acids. You have to have essential fatty acids for your brain to be healthy. So if you're not eating good quality essential fatty acids, which most of it's going to come from good fish, you're going to be deficient. Like of all the lab work I've done over the years, I don't think I've seen a couple people have normal level of essential fatty acids in blood, other than ones that have been super consistent at taking essential fatty acids. So when you're going to find a vitamin or mineral, make sure you go to somebody you trust, and also make sure you understand that you need to read the labels, but also look at not only what's in it, but also what's not in it, and understand that things should work together in a specific way, which I'll come to in a minute. Brain support. So those are vitamins and minerals and herbs, and especially what's called amino acids that are specific for allowing the brain to not fatigue. So most of the time when you see people struggling brain-wise, their brain's fatiguing. So there are a few products I use specifically that address brain fatigue. It was literally designed that way. When you think of supplements, I want you to think of those as those that are supplements when it comes to, hey, I'm not getting enough of this in my diet, essential fatty acids. Hey, vitamin D, vitamin A, vitamin K, I'm just not getting enough of that in my diet. So I need to take a product that has enough of the high quality ones so my body and brain have those supplements that are necessary for my body to do its job. Okay, that's a supplement. Then there are what I call activators. Activators are specific keys that activate specific proteins that turn on switches in your body. For instance, you want to have a good diet, right? If you're going to go exercise to lose weight or to gain muscle, you want to have a good diet. So it's critical that you have a good diet to give your body what it needs to build muscle. If you don't exercise, if you don't lift weights, you will not activate the muscle tissue to say, I want to build, I want to muscle, I want to lose fat, and that active lifting is activating. You have to activate those muscles in order for the body to utilize those muscles and make them better. All right. So there's also certain nutraceuticals made the same way. We call it nutrigenomics, how nutrition and genes work together, how nutrition and genes affect each other. And some are good or some are not so good. There's also environmental pollutants that affect genes in the wrong way. That's a whole other topic. But understand that not all products are the same. So when you go in and you say, well, I'm taking a green tea, or I'm taking a milk thistle, or I'm taking a turmeric, or I'm taking whatever the herb might be, and you look and say, well, I can get all these different herbs, and you don't know how they're going to work together unless they've been studied that way. So an activator is a specific combination of extracts put together in a certain way that causes specific response in the cell. Okay, so I'm gonna say it again. So when you go to get in your car, you want to have the right key, because if the key is not the right key, you're not getting in. And if you can't get in, you also can't start the car and can't drive it. So it's super critical that you have these activators along with that. So they're talking about the big systems I said before: oxidative stress, mitochondrial dysfunction, right, and cell communication. Those are key switches that you can turn on with very specific combined nutrients, right? That you want to do. To reference back how important it is, we talked about there's 3 enzymes, both those studies talked about: glutathione, catalase, superoxide oxide dismutase. Phenomenally big enzymes that are just, they turn the faucet on so your body can heal and repair, right? When we're younger, it tends to work much better than when we're older, right? And our stressors are higher. Those enzymes have to work well. Very specific combined products are designed to do just that, and they turn on these switches for your body to produce these big enzymes. At the same time, there's some that are designed to turn on your body's mitochondria to work and for your body to make new mitochondria. All right, so that goes back to, so brain support, that's your vitamins, minerals, and amino acids or proteins. Your inflammatory nutrients, which goes back to the oxidative stress. Your GI and what's called digestive enzymes. Make sure you have a healthy gut is critical. So you might, if depending on who you are, if you've been on antibiotics a lot, especially a lot of people have, that's going to affect your brain health. So you might need enzymes, you might need probiotics, you might have to do some immune support to get rid of the bad gut ecology you created because of a poor diet and because of certain medications. You might need some sleep support to affect how your brain rests. You might have to do some things to improve how much your body gets enough of these vitamins, minerals, and amino acids. You might need some different things to help your body build up glutathione or help turn on your body's mitochondria. So to me, supplementation is critical, but also very easy in that you can be 100% with that. I have people much more successful at taking vitamins than exercising, but we want to do both. Okay. Here's a couple of things that I want to throw in here specifically for if you've had concussions. Like, there's specific nutrients you want to really increase with that. And so when you have a concussions, and you'll see this is actually directly out of Dr. Amen's book. So I utilize very specific products with that, but those nutrients are critical with concussions. And here's the thing he said about concussions, which I loved, because a lot of people with ADD and ADHD, they tend to be they'll do high risk behaviors and like get concussions. The best time to prepare your brain for a concussion is before a concussion. Let me say that again. The best time to prepare your brain for a concussion is before a concussion. So the healthier your brain is, the more these nutrients here are already in your body when you have a concussion, you're going to respond much faster. But also you want to increase the doses of things when you're doing that. On top of that, do therapies that help brain. All right, these are a few on that right side. When it comes to brain health, there are a few other things that they do. You want to do find some emotional support. So for instance, if you're struggling, people struggling with ADD, ADHD, or other things like that, you want to develop some life skills and some stress management skills that are going to help you be more successful. Here's just a few things that I'll do. Of teaching a few people some skill sets with that. That brain tap, that's a type of neural feedback device that I use. That's something that anybody can use at home. That will help your brain learn to calm and learn to focus. if you're somebody that struggle with ADHD, it's super important to make sure that you understand how Wi-Fi affects you and find ways to offset that. You're seeing a lot of things out there about blue light blockers, screens that go over your phone as well as your computer. And also like, that you can use things like magnets or other devices that offset that. All right. Those individuals that struggle with ADD, ADHD, autism, and really anybody, a lot of the challenge that they will have will be because they're reacting to foods. So you want to identify, and this goes back to the idea of decreasing that stress by identifying the foods that are robbing you of nutrients or that are causing more inflammation. Some of the big ones all the time: gluten, sugar, dairy, and corn. Those are some very, very common. Doesn't mean that will be you, but it's super common. If you're one of those individuals that seem like you react to everything, that really is you have a dysfunctional digestive tract, and you got to work on improving that. Every one of us will have some level of toxins in our body, unless you live in some world other than the one we live in here. And so you want to find sometimes some of the symptoms people are having with ADD, ADHD, they're gonna need some extra support in finding ways to pull the heavy metals out. Now, the really cool thing is the better your body handles oxidative stress, it naturally pulls that out. A couple of things I said earlier talking about methylation and sulfuronization, which is sulfur. So sulfur is in garlic and asparagus, onions. So that's why people will say, well, eat those foods because they help bind to some toxin to pull it out. Same with like B12, like methylation. That's the same type of process. It helps bind to and pull things out. Make sure your water sources are clean. Like, you want to make sure you're not putting more toxin in your body, and make sure you're drinking adequate water. The only thing that's water is water. So if you're not drinking adequate water, your body literally cannot clean up the way it needs to. Right. And if you're eating foods or drinks that are putting the wrong stuff in, your body has to expend energy to get it out. I've never seen this before. Some people, they'll say, I'm drinking water now. I have to go to the bathroom all the time. So I could used to drink like a 44 ounces of soda and never have to go to the bathroom. That's a problem. So if you're literally having to if you're drinking water, it means your body's like filtering stuff out. So imagine how much fluid your body has to hold onto in order to wash all that sugar out of your system. Super important. All right. Here are a couple of studies I want to throw at you about the importance of glutathione, because if there's one enzyme that's critical in brain health, and especially with this, and you'll see this whether it's autistic research or ADD, ADHD, you'll have people do IV of glutathione and have huge impact. So just know, if you want to do some more research on you, go to what's called PubMed.gov, or at least go to Google Scholar if you're more someone wants to research. All right, here is the brain drink that I use. Okay, it's designed to address mental fatigue, and I'm going to show you a picture here in a minute of why it's so important. So, if you can, the more right things you do, the better. And you don't have to be perfect. The goal is always an improvement. But if you look at what's in this: B vitamins, magnesium, caffeine, DMAE, green tea extract, pine bark, L-theanine, and quercetin. Now, these are specific nutrients combined together that address brain fatigue. Now, most people do research, they read it, they think, well, I need B vitamins, or I need magnesium, or I need individual things, but they don't know how they work together nor how they combine. So when this product was designed, it was designed to address brain fatigue. Who has brain fatigue? Any one of us might have brain fatigue at any one time. Those individuals that struggle with focus, with concentration, socialization, overwhelm, well, guess what? They probably have more of it, right? So, but brain fatigue can affect every single one of us. At the end of the day, though, when your brain is tired, it's going to affect your relationships. It's going to affect your job. It's going to affect your communication skills, because a tired brain makes bad decisions, good or bad, right? Bad decisions. So look more not just at individual ingredients, but how the ingredients are put together and the effect that will really have. Let me show you this picture. So this is a picture of my nephew's handwriting, the one on the left. So for perspective, he was 9 at the time, and that was his handwriting. And then we started him on 2 particular products to address oxidative stress, to increase those enzymes, and the brain drink. That was his handwriting 2 weeks later. But what always gets me at this is this little boy that had a ton of allergies. He struggled in school. He always had to stay in at recess because he couldn't complete his assignments. He didn't play well with other people. He didn't regulate himself very well. And I had done a lot of things with it. I'd given him a lot of good nutrition that I thought at the time. We were, trying to control his diet. We had actually done neural feedback with him, so we were doing some brain training, but still he was struggling. When we found a way and some products that were designed to address brain fatigue and to turn on those enzyme productions in the cells, his brain had the capacity. It just didn't have the switches turned on. It's like you're walking in a dark room and you can't see where you're going. And that's where his brain was. And when I see this, I think about the confidence levels he started to gain as he did these things, because now he's learning, he's remembering, and he's recalling. And so he feels confident in himself and what he's doing. So imagine what type of choices he makes now differently than he would have, and how he feels about himself now versus what he would have. So if there are people, individuals in your life that maybe they're struggling, you haven't looked into this, please look into this. And if you have a conversation with me or somebody else, let's have that conversation so we can see, hey, if this is something that might be effective for you. All right, going back to the way I started. It's super important that we understand how to have a healthy brain and what the rules are, and what we are doing or are not doing that will drastically impact that. So my hope is that this has been helpful for you, to give you some insights and maybe some inspiration, and some questions to ask. Okay, what do I need to do now? So I'm going to give you some super easy action steps. Number one, reduce as much clutter out of your diet as you can. Improve your sleep habits. Develop some stress management skills. Apply very specific, as much as you can, remove the preservatives from your diet. Eat more things that are fresh and real versus anything that comes from a box, a bag, or a can. Protect your relationships, so you give your brain what it needs, both in the associations you have and what you allow to come into your body from screens, right? The information, because all of that matters. And then find key nutrients that you're not, because if you're not getting it in your diet, your brain's not getting it, and get those in your body so your brain can perform. And the effects of what you've been doing are cumulative. The effects of what you will do will be cumulative. So if you're already struggling, it's going to take a little time to get you where you can be. So what I've learned about the body, and it surprises me again most days, is its capacity to improve itself and regenerate itself beyond what I thought was possible. So pray you're well. Please share this with family and friends you think might be beneficial to, and reach out, and look forward to getting to talk to you someday. Have a great day.